You're listening to The Riff, a podcast by North Point Church. There's a lot more to the Christian journey than what can be presented in a 30-minute time slot from a stage on Sunday morning. Our host and lead pastor, Jeremy Johnson, highlights the vision of North Point Church and the Christian journey through stories, interviews, and unfiltered faith ramblings. We hope the conversations will help you engage in how faith interacts with your life. I think we're ready. Let's go for it.
One of my favorite things about being a part of the North Point community is the North Point community. I love the stories of people who are doing their very best to reflect Jesus on their normal daily life. And one of the benefits of this podcast is to be able to highlight some of these stories, whether it's a story of vision or a story of a certain topic of how someone's living out their faith. I think that's helpful. And today, that's what we want to do. I want to interview a family, a North Point family, who I believe just is exciting to watch on their journey, because I believe the way they love Jesus and the way they love others makes it more possible for other people to love Jesus. I think they live out a very attractive message of Christ, whether it's through their home or through their work. And so I'm excited to share their story with you. So let's dive in as we introduce you to the Mhire family. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. And we're so excited to have today those who are listening. And my hope is if there are 3 people listening, that means my mom dragged her friends. And I'm excited. One of the things, I'm going to introduce our guests here, but one of the things that I love about being a pastor at North Point is to meet North Pointers. Mm-hmm. And I'm fascinated with people's journey. And early on in my journey here at North Point, many years ago, I met our guests today, and so I want to introduce them because I believe their story not only is fascinating, it really is endearing to what God's doing in their life and through their life. And so I'm excited to introduce my friends to all of my brand new podcast and vodcast fans. I don't even know how to say vodcast, but I'm excited. It's a tough word, but I want to introduce Jeremy and Jenny Mhire. And so take a moment and tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, how long y'all been in Springfield.
Well, I'll start. I'm Jeremy. Both Jenny and I grew up here, and we met when we were in middle school. And
okay, where'd you go to middle school?
We went to Cherokee. Yeah,
okay, met, love at first sight?
I was love at first sight. I loved him at first sight. I remember your mom said she overheard a conversation with us one time. She picked up the phone, and we had just been dating like a couple months, and I was like, I love you. Let's get married.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean,
she knew.
It was
my
early
mom
on. It took
knew.
a while.
My mom, I think my mom showed Jenny's picture, her middle school picture, to my dad and said, I think this is the girl that Jeremy's going to marry.
She said, I like this one. Who's that?
That's a
cute.
Praying mother's intuition. So
that
she
is
was right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
At least she picked a great one. So
right?
that's awesome.
Yes, she did.
So y'all from here, you grew up at Cherokee, and you guys date through high school and all that?
We did. We started dating in 8th grade and had a few breakups here and there.
Yeah.
It sounds like a Taylor Swift song.
It was
never my
yeah.
fault.
No,
Yeah.
never. Never. He would never break up with me. But it was good because we were able to live our lives and date other people.
Her grandma always jokes that she knew she didn't have to ask if we were together. She just knew if she went to their house and the picture was like face down.
Okay.
No, she would ask when I'd come over, and she'd say, "Hey, Jenny, do I need to turn Jeremy's picture forward or backwards for this trip?" And I'm like, "Oh, you can turn it forwards this time."
So we were on again, off again, but
in Kickapoo, Cherokee goes to Kickapoo, right?
Cherokee, Kickapoo, and then we got married in 2003. Just celebrated our 18th anniversary.
Congratulations! They say the first 18 years is the hardest, so it's all piece cake from there.
We had a whole 10 years before we got married.
I don't know if it's uphill or downhill from there, but it's the good one.
Total.
Okay, 20. Man, together a long time.
Yes.
So not a lot of surprises when you got married. So, other than what marriage does.
We keep surprising each other.
I know, right? Yeah.
So, okay. So you get married. Is that right? Probably it wasn't right after high school.
No.
So talk to me about after high school. So,
well, I was going to school at Missouri State, flunking out, not doing very well, and Yeah, I was actually just talking to my mom the other day. She was talking about how she was just praying for me because I was pretty lost and trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I remember having a conversation in the mirror, like, God, this is not me, this lifestyle, what I'm doing right now. It's like living with a guy that I knew was pretty sure was dealing drugs. And it was just kind of sketchy. And I got a random call one day. I would sing growing up, always sang at church, sang at school. And so it wasn't uncommon for me to like sing the national anthem before the game and then go play in the game, you know?
Like, were you invited to, or you just like from the bleachers you sang?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Or like they gave you a mic and everything. So you're like a real singer.
Yeah. I mean, I was put on spot to sing a lot, even when I was like, I don't necessarily want to, but it obviously was a calling at that time in my life. Because I ended up getting a phone call from a guy that was a tour manager, road manager. He had a connection through Atlantic Records. Long story short, I ended up flying out to California, auditioning for this little boy band called Plus One. And next thing you know, we're doing studio albums, and I'm moving to San Francisco and LA and Nashville. So yeah, that was...
Now, okay,
in a nutshell,
little,
that was a whole nother lifetime ago.
But little band called Plus One.
Yeah.
For our viewing audience, we got a picture right here of one of your albums. So tell me, what was, you sang a lot of things. Plus One was like I wasn't allowed to listen to secular music back in the day. So this is like Christian Backstreet Boys, man.
It was, yeah.
So,
you know, and it was, I mean, that was what was big back then, was the pop music. And I think we had a very unique gateway into the music industry because we were with Atlantic Records. So it was like a secular record label. And being a Christian artist, we were like doing tours with POD or shows with POD, like big rock band at the time. Who got a lot of big mainstream, push. Collective Soul was on the label with us, and a lot of cool opportunities that we got that sometimes a lot of, artists in the GMA category maybe didn't get.
So give me your favorite, looking back, one of your favorite gigs that you guys did.
Hands down, national anthem at the Lakers game at Staples.
Really? Yeah. Is that like Kobe Bryant era?
Kobe Bryant.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but we sang the national anthem before a Lakers Sacramento Kings game.
That's awesome.
Like high five all the players, and it was cool. It was really neat.
That's cool. So how long did that journey in the music industry last for you?
My sense of time, she always makes fun of me because I always get things off. I'll say like, we did it for like a decade. She's like, no, you did it for like 3 years.
Because you guys were dating during the season?
We dated on and so I was in college. I was at SMS back then, but Missouri State. Okay. So I was in college. I was in a sorority. I didn't have a cell phone, so he'd have to call me on like the sorority phone house. So it was really hard to maintain a long distance. He was in California and he's in this band. I mean, who knows? We'd go days without talking, and so it was really hard.
You're looking for him on the magazine covers at the grocery store, right? Like,
I have. Yes. There was one time we broke up, and I actually went into Dillard's to go shopping for Christmas, and that was back when they would play the video, like the stop. They would do the videos. The music videos up on screens, and I walked in. I'm like, I'm gonna go Christmas shopping, and all of a sudden I hear this song. And I look up, and it's Jeremy's music video, and I literally just started crying and walked out of the department store. So it was like a sell on and off again.
But crying because it was so corny.
I was like, that's my man.
So you guys were off and on.
It was hard. And then we always loved each other. I mean, it really was always that. It always came back to that. It was just
fun
tough.
fact. I was actually dating someone else, and there was one time where I'd gotten back off tour. And she and I were driving around in Nashville, and she said something that I remember. I was like, man, Jenny would never act like this. And so we started kind of bickering and arguing back and forth. And she said it again. And instead of saying her name, I go, Jenny. And she was like, I was like, just take me home. We broke up, and I got back together with Jenny. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I graduated in 2000. December 2002.
Yes.
We got engaged that Christmas.
Okay.
So that Christmas, like right when I graduated, it was our plan to get engaged. I ended up moving to Nashville where he was then, and we got married in 2003. So it would have been 2003 that you were done with the band.
Yeah.
So right before we got married was when we he decided that was the best move for him and for us it was kind of a lifestyle that we didn't want to.
She's a Yoko Ono. She broke up the band.
I broke up the band. I did. But it was, it's that pivotal moment that as a couple, it's like, where are we going to go from here? How are we going to maintain a traveling relationship?
Yeah.
I was in Nashville. He would travel. I'd be alone. And there was so many other factors going on with the band. They were going in a different direction and things like that. And I think it was just, we kind of came to an agreement that it was like, you know what? Let's be done with this. Let's start a new chapter. And we moved back to Springfield to be with our families. And he went back to college.
It was just another example of kind of a crossroads in life where I'll never forget sitting on the couch with Jenny, and I was in my early 20s making six figures, and I was like, this is as good as it gets. Like, this ride's going to go forever. And I remember just when I was done, the day that I was done with the band, just having this sense of like, oh no, now what? Like, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? We're getting married, and like, I got to figure out a career. And we were intentional. We sat, we held hands. I'll never forget that little white leather couch, and we prayed. And I said, God, whatever it is that you have next, whether it's landscaping, which I did, or valeting cars at the Hilton downtown Nashville. I was literally checking bags and parking cars for artists during Dove Award GMA week.
Stuff that you used to do.
Artists that used to tour and open for us.
Yeah.
And my dad always says, he's like, that's when I knew you were a man. Because I really, at that point, was like, God, whatever opportunity that I have next, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. And I'm going to do it with a big fat smile on my face. And I'm going to do it with joy. And I loved it. And I made a lot of good memories and created a lot of good life habits, that were foundational to what God had next.
Now, a lot of people who are listening, they're probably somewhere stuck in the middle because that's most of life, right? Where we got these big dreams, but you just said this, developing good work habits and life habits, and trying to figure that out. And we always talk about how there seems to be a blessing on the other side of obedience. And when you take that step because you know that God's bringing you two together and there's some sacrifices involved in that, but you know that's best, God does bless. And it doesn't always look like a check in the mail. Sometimes it looks like a lot of hard work. Now, you've got two kids who are, how old are they now?
13 and 10.
13 and 10. Yes. So you're in the middle of parenting bliss right now. Wow. And
they're
so,
actually great.
Okay, so tell us this journey. So kind of that was a whole chapter of life, of dating, band life. You get married. You're trying to figure out survival mode here now as this new couple. How did you, now you have this influence in the health industry here with the gym y'all own. Tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Well, my parents, so I grew up in sports. So I was always like really involved in basketball and football. So I always had that interest. And then even when we were touring, I was always like, the guys would want to go to a movie or they'd want to go to the mall. And I was like, I want to go to the gym. I want to play basketball and I want to lift. And the road guys always used to joke. They'd be like, dude, nobody likes a jacked rock star. Like, you're supposed to just like be thin and wear your boy band outfit or whatever. So,
I'm halfway there.
There you go.
You did it.
Right? But I did. I've always enjoyed exercise. I've always enjoyed fitness. And a buddy of mine that I played football with in high school, he went infantry in the Marines. He played football at the Naval Academy. He told me about CrossFit, and I looked into it. I had gone back to school for sports medicine, got my degree, got my athletic training degree. And when I found CrossFit, I saw this bridge between injury prevention and management and health and wellness and performance.
Okay.
And I just wanted to bridge that gap, but I also wanted to build community. And I would say, like, my approach to fitness is the same as your approach to building a culture at church and creating a safe place for people to find and follow Jesus.
Right.
I want people to have a safe place, no matter where they're at in their journey of health and wellness, to plug in and have community to do it with. And you don't have to get in shape to go do it. You know, you don't have to get right with God to come to church.
Right.
You come to church to get right with God. And so that's the parallels that I've always seen in like what we do, you know?
It's funny because you talk about like obedience, and it's not always in the form of a check. So he went through college, you know, he was working, doing some personal training. I was working full time, and we finally get to graduation. And I'm like, yes, he had gotten an offer at Mercy to go get a nice stable job with a salary and benefits. And he's like, babe, I think I need to open a CrossFit. I need to own this. And I was like,
no one knew what CrossFit was at the time. This is in the middle of the great 2008 recession.
We're the very first one in town, almost in the Midwest. And I'm just like, you want to, what? And he's like, I have to do it. And it was another one of those pivotal moments where he could take the easy route, take the salary, and I already know him, and I know how he would have been miserable.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been worth the first, you know, like few years of being comfortable with a paycheck, but he took the leap of faith and was like, let's go ahead and go forward with this, because I think it's something can be bigger with this, and it will bless us along down the line. So
that's interesting, because even to shift in the career, realizing, hey, I've got a season here, marriage is going to be more important for this, and it's going to require a leap of faith. You did it. When it came to, okay, what am I going to do with the gifts God gave me? Leap of faith. Now, if you're new to town, and you're into CrossFit, you're into health, you're probably very familiar with Proximal Strength, the gym. It's one of the biggest, great reputation of a gym out there. I would imagine it didn't look like that right out of the bat. I mean, was it successful right out of the bat? It's got to have been a lot of months where it doesn't look like it does now.
Yeah. When we started, we had an initial like grand opening event. And we got around 20 charter members, 20 or 30. There was many mornings where I would show up at 5 a.m. for the group workout and no one would be there. So I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna work out. But you know, something that's always stuck with me is just that whole stewardship principle, that whole stewardship idea of it doesn't matter to me whether there's 1, 10, 100, 500 members. I've got to be faithful with whoever God entrusts to me to lead and to guide and to help and to serve. So that's always been my heart. That's always been my mindset through the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and marriage and all of that. Just being faithful with whatever's there.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I know that you guys have had challenges along the way, and one of the things that I heard is I heard, Jeremy, you tell me this story years ago about a trip, I believe, to Kansas City you all were on, and where you had a major health crisis, Jenny. Jenny, why don't you tell me a little bit about that journey, what you remember, and fill us in.
It's crazy to think about back then, because like I don't have many memories of it. So the way we processed the whole thing was very different. So basically we were on our way to Lawrence, Kansas. Our son Vincent, it was 2008. Our son Vincent was 6
you guys are
old.
Jayhawk fans.
We were Jayhawk fans.
I forget that.
It was the day they won
the national championship. So we were going to go, right? Yeah. So we were going to go watch it on a big Megatron down in Lawrence, because the game wasn't there. So we packed up everybody and started driving down I-44, and Jeremy got ran off the road by a semi. The story's better for him, but to tell, because I truly have no really recollection of it. So if you want to give a brief, like maybe rundown of what the story was, and I can explain what I have.
Essentially what happened is this truck I'm passing, and I'm in his blind spot, and he swerves and comes over like he's going to change lanes. And I slam on my brakes and I lay on the horn and I swerve off the road. Jenny sits up, startled, takes a gasp of breath. She was asleep in the back next to Vin. Sits up, gasp, takes a breath, and then just slumps over. Eyes open, lifeless. I thought maybe she was like having a seizure or some sort. But I pulled over to the side of the road. I'll never forget in that moment. The only thing I yelled out loud was, "Jesus, help me." And I couldn't find the dang emergency light. You know, I was like trying to find the emergency light. So maybe I was just asking God to help me find the emergency light. Because I finally found it and I hit it. I went around back. I took Jenny out of the car. And this is kind of where it's crazy to see how God weaves everything together. I had just gone back to school for sports medicine. So I knew how to do CPR. I knew basic life support. I even knew things down to the little things about, like, back then you would do breaths as well. And sometimes the tongue can like go back and block the airway so they won't get air. And I just knew how to like thrust her jaw forward and give her breath. But I checked it. She didn't have a pulse. Her, you know, she wasn't breathing. So it was a very frantic, kind of panicked situation. But, you know, I cried out to God to help me, and God did. God gave me clarity and calm in that moment to do what I needed to do until in between breaths and compressions, a couple stopped, and then I think he was a former Army Ranger, stopped. Mm-hmm. And then finally they had called 911. The ambulance got there. Actually, before the ambulance got there, a Missouri Highway Patrolman came, and he had an AED. Mm-hmm. And so
he had heard the call, and he wasn't even called to it, but he was like, "We're close, let's go." So he grabbed his partner. At that time, they'd removed AEDs from all of the highway patrolmen's cars because they were getting sued for improper shock or whatever of people. So they weren't supposed to have them in their car, but he was also an EMT. On his way out, he jumped in his partner's car and he's like, "Wait, let me grab this." He goes and grabs the AED machine, and they show up. He's the only sheriff that was in 19 counties, I think, that had an AED in his car. And so, I mean,
like that's the only thing
that's what they used to start the rhythm.
So long story short, she ended up she had cardiac arrest. She had a heart condition that we didn't know about called long QT, so where the QRST interval becomes elongated and you just flatline.
Sudden death
and
syndrome.
Startle is sudden death. Mm-hmm. So startle is that was obviously a big a factor in that. Wow. But like 99% of all people that have it don't survive an incident. One. So
it's when you see like seemingly healthy 25, 30-year-olds are just
fall over or
during
whatever.
sports or just don't wake up or something like that.
So what did you learn through that, or what are some of the ways God's used even that miracle in your life?
Oh my gosh. It was kind of hard to process, I think, even for the first few years. Like, I just didn't get what everybody else. I woke up and I had a scar. I got a pacemaker and defibrillator. I have a scar. I have surgery. But the grand effect of everything didn't really hit me until like a few years later. I think we had already had Vincent. They said 50-50 chance that if you have another child, that they're going to get it. So we had him tested. We found the gene defect in me, so we were able to test him genetically. He was fine. So I'm like, done. No more kids. That's it. No more kids. After a conversation with our cardiologist, Dr. Wiggins, who is amazing, he sat me down. He said, "I'm not going to talk to you as your doctor. I'm going to talk to you as your friend." He said, "God put you on this earth." And when I first walked in, I'm sorry. Here it goes. He said,
he goes, moment.
I literally walked in the door and he goes, "Why aren't you pregnant?" And I was like, "Whoa, that's weird. You're my cardiologist. So like, why are you saying that?" And he was like, "You told me you wanted 2 kids a while back." And I'm like, "I'm not having another kid. That's no." And he said, "God put you on this earth to have the children you want, procreate, whatever, however he said it, yeah." But he said he also put people like me on this earth and has done medical research on this earth to take care of you and your babies. And he said, if God wants to take you or your children, he's going to take them. Mm-hmm. It is not up to you to decide if you're supposed to have a child or not. Go have your baby. And I was like, all right, we're going to have a baby. So now we have sweet little Emil that was never really going to be in the works after, having that heart condition. Yeah. But it's also just, I think the biggest thing that I've learned from just that whole experience and just being able to step back and just look at how quickly something can be taken away from you. And I don't know if sometimes this makes me seem, I brush things off too quickly, or kind of like, I don't know if it's a head in the clouds, or I don't take things too seriously, even when it's like a super serious, like big situation. Like there's so much faith that I have that is like, it doesn't have to be like something's going to happen one way or another. It's, right. We're going to have an outcome with what we're looking at, but, and I do worry about things. Obviously I'm human. Right. I get stressed and stuff like that. But when it's more of like a big life moment, or someone's sick, or it's like this, almost like this, like, okay, I don't know. It's just this kind of calm that comes over me. That's just like, just let whatever is supposed to happen. And then we can go from there and figure out what to do.
On the way to the hospital, there was this elderly couple that had stopped, and the gentleman, he drove my car, and I sat in the back next to him. Jenny was in the ambulance, and I remembered that my Bible was under the front passenger seat, and I have Psalm 28:7 tattooed on my back, and the Lord is my strength and my shield.
Just show it to me.
Yeah, right. But
what's the verse?
It's the Lord is my strength and my shield.
Okay.
But I grabbed my Bible and I'm just praying. Jenny's been unconscious. She's on their way to the hospital. I don't know if she's going to live, if she's going to die. I don't know what's going on. I just know that I saw her dead. And I grabbed my Bible and I cracked it open in the middle, because I know that's where Psalms is, like every good Sunday school boy. And I tried to go to Psalm 28:7, but God took my eyes to Psalm 27:13. And basically the verse is, I know I'll see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Like, wait, be strong of heart, be patient, wait for the Lord. And in that moment, me and the Holy Spirit, I just, listened to your sermon about the fire, the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit just spoke to my heart and just said, Jeremy, she's not yours. Like, she's mine. And so if she lives today, then I'm with you. And if she dies today, guess what? I'm with you. And just such a peace that came over me. I can't explain it. It's the peace that passes all understanding, is unexplainable, inexplicable. But I knew in that moment that, no matter what, despite the problem, I could cling to God's promise. Yeah.
That's great.
So.
Well, I'll tell you what, is as I hear your story, I just keep thinking of Paul writes, he says, whether I have a lot or I have a little, I want to be content wherever God's put me. And I've seen that in your life. And I know there are people who are listening, and maybe that verse right now, they feel like they've got death of a dream, death of a situation, that they would see God in the land of the living. They'd be encouraged by that. Now, we got time for one more question I want to hit here is your life, you represent health to so many, but it could also be intimidating for those who don't consider themselves to be healthy, right? How would you say, as a follower of Jesus, how does health and even kind of what your approach, how is that a spiritual issue?
Yeah. Well, I see it as being interconnected. Our mission at Proximal Strength is to build and to edify lives daily, mentally, physically, and spiritually. So I just see so many times when, for myself, if emotionally or mentally I'm kind of struggling, that doing something physical can kickstart me, because it's kind of like, if I can go and train my body and push myself, then why can't I train my mind and my spirit to follow suit? And likewise, vice versa. There's a lot of times where I'm like, not really motivated. I mean, I'll be honest, I just had a client say this today. She's like, well, it's got to be easy for you. You love this. And I'm like, I do love this. But my goal, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a pastor, you always want to facilitate, fitness, spiritual fitness for others. And you've got to really be intentional about prioritizing it for yourself, right. You know, and just in practicing what you preach. And so, you know, I get that it's intimidating, and I don't discount that. But that's where the reward is, you know, and that's where, when you kind of face your fears or put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, that's where you grow. So,
That's awesome. Well, Jeremy and Jenny, I'm so thankful for you, what God's done in your life and how you share it at every turn in your business, in your life, in your parenting. And thanks for being with us today. And man, I pray that God's blessing continues to just chase you and flow through you in whatever these next seasons bring. So I'm really thankful that you joined us today. So
likewise, Jeremy.
Thank you.
We're thankful for you in North Point. Thank you.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Riff. We'll have a brand new episode every week wherever you find podcasts.